Welcome to the Battle of Ohio podcast, where we follow the revival of the historic rivalry between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns.
All right, guys. So, bit of a, I guess, call it an emergency segment here. It is now Thursday, March 18th. We originally recorded this podcast on Tuesday, but a lot of the moves kind of waited until later in the week to happen. Actually, all of this happened yesterday on Wednesday, but it all happened overnight, so we didn't quite have as much time to put something together as we do now. But yeah, there's been some moves that are being made, but the ones that we really kind of want to focus on for this segment in particular are the ones that are particularly of interest to both the Bengals and the Browns. So one move that the Bengals made, and we don't have full contract details on this yet, but they actually signed former Browns defensive tackle Larry Ogunjobi, which, as you'll recall, if you're a regular listener of this podcast, you'll recall that I've been calling for the Bengals to do that for a while now. So I'm very happy by that signing.
Yeah, I mean he was going to be a Brown. You kind of the writing was on the wall. I mean, like, the Browns don't want to overpay for me players on defense, considering the fact that their defense was one of the worst defense in the league. So you don't want to bring back Larry Ogunjobi is a great player. Don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna knock him. But it's just it's not. He's a good player. He's a good player that we lost. That's all I want to say about it.
Well, I feel you, because the Bengals have been doing that a lot, actually. Like, you want to talk about, like, a lot of the talk around the Bengals right now, with they've been making a lot of free agency moves, but most of the free agency moves they've been making, for the most part, have really just been replacing guys who are leaving. Now, not Ogunjobi, but then again, you could argue that bringing in Ogunjobi gives the Bengals an excuse to cut Geno Atkins and free up about $12 million in salary cap space by doing that. But we lost Carl Lawson and William Jackson. Those are both two very good players, but the Bengals defense was so bad that you're not really, it seemed kind of like an upgrade just to go get new players at all. Even though it is moving on from some of the best players, but Trey Hendrickson, arguably about the same potential as Carl Lawson. You got Chidobe Awuzie, which you could argue might have the chance to be as productive as William Jackson, based on the history he's had. Mike Hilton probably got a good, as if they use him right, got a good chance of being more productive than Mackenzie Alexander was. So, but yeah, that basically just seems like. I think you're right, Thomas. It's like, when you've got such a bad defense, like, even if they are good players, it's really kind of just hard to justify giving them all that money.
Yeah. It seems like the Bengals are really trying to close that gap, though, between the Ravens and the Browns and them, and possibly the Steelers. I think they already closed the gap with the Steelers.
Well, that's
but yeah, but like,
I think the Steelers are trying to close the gap too. With all that,
I look at when I look at the what the Bengals are doing, I like the fact that they're heavily focused on defensive side of the ball. They still got to fix the offensive line. The offensive line not ready yet. Still.
Yeah. Well, that's the big problem to me. But there's been a little bit of news on the offensive line, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Real quick though, I want to the other major move that I really want to talk about. Well, actually, just real quick, just to say one last thing about Ogunjobi before we move on. But the big thing that is really a big deal to me about bringing in Larry Ogunjobi is he's a good defensive tackle, who can potentially finally have a defensive tackle tandem. Unfortunately, Geno Atkins has gotten old and broken down at this point, but we're getting DJ Reader back. We got And then you add Larry Ogunjobi in there, and then hopefully maybe Trey Hendrickson won't have the same problem producing as Carl Lawson had last year. So maybe you're not going to see a huge regression despite all that money we gave him.
Mhm.
But anyway, moving on to the other move we want to talk about. The Browns re-signed Rashard Higgins, who's another player who I said the Bengals should target if they have a chance to bring him in because he'd be a good guy, I think, to add to that receiving room. Unfortunately for the Bengals, the Browns brought him in for what appears to be a really good deal, like a 1 year, $2.3 million deal. So I
Yeah.
imagine you're happy about getting him back, Thomas.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I think this is a year. This is a year where the Browns. I think this is the best chance the Browns had to win a Super Bowl in a very, very long time. In fact, this is probably one of the best years the Browns have to win a Super Bowl almost in their entire history. You gotta strike with the iron's hot. And I solely believe if you bring that receiver room back as it is, I know you're not really key on Odell Beckham, but I think that receiver room is solid. I think that Odell Beckham is only going to add to it. I think that you don't want to lose anything from the receiver room. I think we want to keep everything on offense again and bring everything back because this is one of the most efficient offenses in the NFL with a first-year head coach. So when they get in that same system next year, they're going to be even better. So I think that bringing him back to grow with Baker as Baker's growing and grow with these receivers. You get Odell Beckham back this year. I think this offense is going to be just more explosive than it was last year. So I think it's just a no-brainer. You got to bring him back. You got to bring him back. And the fact that he kind of took a very reasonable deal for a team, when he could have went out somewhere else and probably got overpaid.
Yeah, honestly, if he had come to the Bengals, I think we probably would have paid him twice what you guys paid him. So I was wondering if maybe you guys got a little bit of a home team discount there.
Yeah, I freaking love that. I like Higgins, man. Higgins is a good dude. Higgins is a real good dude. I really enjoy Higgins. Also,
go ahead.
No, I mean also they have the Browns also signed Anthony Walker, middle linebacker. He played for the Colts last year, I believe. Yeah, and
I didn't see that. I literally looked right before we started recording and seen what's been going on.
So Anthony Walker is a middle linebacker, played for the Colts. Solid stats. It's just a depth signing, and that's what you want for the Browns right now. You don't want to commit to too many big contracts right now. You want to get more of these depth signings. I do think we still need a corner and one more pass rusher. You can probably get one of those things in the draft and sign another free agent. We do have a lot of safeties. Maybe we can move one of those over to corner or beef up that secondary. But I think that I feel like we need another corner. I think the Browns need to either sign another corner or they need to personally, I think they should sign a corner and then draft a pass rusher. What I think they should do. But I like the fact that they're just trying to beef up their defense, just add depth on their defense. Find good, solid players that just add depth to your defense so you could plug and play. I like that. It's an interesting strategy. I like what Andrew Berry's doing right now.
Yeah, the one thing I did see that the Browns have done, I didn't hear about that Walker signing. I didn't, but the one thing I did see that they did was they re-signed former Super Bowl MVP Malcolm Smith, who I'll be completely honest, I forgot he was even on the Browns in the first place. That's mainly because he didn't do anything in 2020. But I mean, his cap hit was less than $1 million, like $900,000 or something like that. So I guess at that point, why the fuck not?
Yeah, I mean, just bring him back. Maybe we can get more magic out of him next year. There's some magic out of him next year. I thought did he get injured last year or something? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he did. He was injured. He wasn't injured the whole year though, so that's why I said there wasn't a lot of production. I think he had an interception, but that was the only thing he really did last year at all.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So the to get back to the Bengals and their offensive line woes, that is everybody is still heavily frustrated. Like as seemingly good as the Bengals are doing in free agency so far, there hasn't been any movement on offense, and in particular on the offensive line, that's the part we're all screaming like, guys, don't do the same thing you did last year. Please, for the love of God, don't do the same thing you did last year. And I think it's a better offensive line class in the draft than people are giving it credit for. But you don't want to rely on like rookies to bolster your offensive line. Like right now, if you just trotted out who's on the team right now, you would have Jonah Williams, who's fine, Bobby Hart, who's okay-ish for a backup, but massively overpaid. You'd have Michael Jordan, because Quentin Spain isn't under contract right now. Michael Jordan's the one who got Joe Burrow hurt. You'd have Billy Price at center because Trey Hopkins is hurt. And you'd have, I guess, probably Xavier Su'a-Filo at the other guard position, which, I mean, that he'd be fine. But, I mean, like, the only good options you have on offensive line right now are Jonah Williams and Xavier Su'a-Filo, and neither of them are, like world beaters or anything like that. So, I'm a lot of us are really trying to figure out what's going on. But we did get a visit from former Vikings right tackle Riley Reef. That would be a really good sign if we can get him in, because he's not like quite like he hasn't made a Pro Bowl. He's not quite like top tier kind of player, but he's good enough, and that's all we need on offensive line. We need that's all we need is good enough. That would be fine.
Yeah, I mean, like to build off good offensive line, it's really hard to build off good offensive line. But you like you said, you want to draft a player in the draft, but you also want to make sure that you draft or that you sign free agents. You want to do a little bit of both. You say they haven't signed an offensive lineman yet, have they?
Not yet, no.
Yeah, so that's kind of unacceptable considering the fact that that everybody that half your fan base have a bad image of their head of Joe Burrow going down.
Well, not only that, but apparently they did target a couple of offensive linemen, which we talked about it on the podcast. It was Joe Tooney and Kevin Zeitler, and they ran both of them out of town they disrespected them. They lowballed them. And neither of them were it's like, how do you expect to fix this offensive line when you treat offensive linemen like that? Yeah.
No, I mean, you don't have respect for one of the most important positions in football. I know every position in football is important, but to me, the most important position in sports is quarterback. But also,
so protecting that guy is huge.
Yeah, the second
you wouldn't go, you wouldn't go buy like a Lamborghini and not get insurance, would you?
Exactly. The two I think tied for two of the most important positions, for the second most important position in football. Number one is the quarterback. Everybody knows the quarterback. But I think the two positions that are tied is the person that gets to the quarterback and the person that protects the quarterback. Those are the because that's what changed the game, man. You have a great pass rush. You get a good pass rush can make up for a bad secondary. Well, the only in that quarterback's head, you get that idea he's coming, and then the only thing offensive line
is. The only thing about that, though, is I agree that's important to have a good pass rush, but like the individual players, none of them are as important as the quarterback, because the quarterback is a whole like with the pass rush, you have like 3 or 4 guys on a team who are supposed to rush. The quarterback's the only guy who can do that.
Oh, I just said the quarterback's the most important position in sports, like without a doubt. Like, what you mean?
Oh, let's here. Hey, mommy. Mommy's out there. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, he got a puppy, ladies and gentlemen. He got a new puppy, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I got a new puppy, everybody. This is Bork.
That is adorable.
Yeah, he's a
Bork.
He's a black lab.
What kind of name is Bork?
Bork is the best.
What a Bork? Is that like Russian or something?
No.
Bork.
Well, I mean, sometimes I call him Bork, the Russian wonder pet, but no, it's just like the meme Bork. We just called him Bork because it's funny. And Thomas is over here just like completely blank face, like what? I don't get it.
All right, yeah.
So the last thing I want to touch on before we leave is the biggest free agent of this entire free agency class. Definitely the biggest wide receiver name on this free agency class. Maybe the biggest free agent. I don't know. You could definitely make the argument for a bunch of different guys. But Kenny Golladay
Who he signed with?
He might be coming to Cincinnati.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
really?
so it's currently right now it seems like it's down to two teams. The Bengals and the Giants. He already visited with the Bengals, and he's going to visit with the Giants. And apparently, the decision, from what I understand, he wants to play in New York. That's what it is with the Giants. He wants to play in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I was understanding last night, that was like the biggest thing for him. So it was most likely, as long as New York offered him a big enough contract, he'd probably just sign there. But since then, I've also found out that apparently something that's just as important to him is he wants to play with Joe Burrow. So my guess is it's really just going to come down to who offers the better contract.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Historically, the Bengals do pay wide receivers. And the Bengals have not been strangers to paying free agent wide receivers in the past. Now, it doesn't always really work out so well, but they're not afraid to do it. And Kenny Golladay in particular, I've basically heard him described as a young AJ Green.
Kenny Golladay is a beast. Kenny Golladay is an absolute beast.
His biggest issue is he didn't really play much last year due to injury. Or at all. I can't remember. But he had a bad season last year. I think he did play a little bit, but he had a bad season last year due to injury. So you're wondering if he's going to bounce back to what he was before 2020. But if he does, then immediately your wide receiver room in Cincinnati is T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Auden Tate, Kenny Golladay, and that's 4 players right there. And then maybe you go draft a couple of and Kenny Golladay is probably, by the way, the number 1 receiver. Maybe T. Higgins, maybe it's kind of like a juggling thing. Maybe it's 1A and 1B, but and then go get at that point I think you can go get 2 wide receivers in the draft, maybe one earlier on, like in the 3rd round, one later on in the 5th round, and one like I said I think on the podcast, the Bengals apparently are interested in Ihmir Smith-Marsette, who's a good kick returner and a guy who I've mentioned on the podcast before. You can probably get him in like the 5th or 6th round. I'd also like to see maybe like somebody like Sage Surratt or Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 3rd round, something like that. And then you got your wide receiver room is Auden Tate, Kenny Golladay, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, which all 4 of those guys right there are starting caliber. I mean, maybe not Auden Tate. Auden Tate's more like a replacement starting caliber, but still, I mean, if that guy's your 4th receiver, you're doing something right. And then maybe he's even the 5th receiver because maybe one of those 2 draft picks works out. I don't know. But all I'm saying is if Kenny Golladay signs with the Bengals, I will be putting out a separate video entirely of me just jumping for fucking joy.
Yeah, Kenny Golladay is a beast. Kenny Golladay is a beast. That ain't something to scoff at. Question though, since we're talking about the NFC North, I have a quick question about a signing. What's your reaction to Andy Dalton going to the Bears? According to reports, the Bears tried their hardest to get Russell Wilson to Chicago. That's a bizarre situation in itself, honestly. But that's not here or there. But
I'm not going to spend too long on this because I think we talked about it on the main podcast. But just like real quick, just to rehash my reaction to it, it's just like I'm kind of like I'm glad he's staying in the NFC. Thank you, Andy Dalton, for staying in the NFC. But just to rehash that real quick, I'm happy Andy Dalton's going to the NFC. I wish him all the best in Chicago. I am kind of pissed because clearly the Bears wanted Andy Dalton, and they actually offered us like a trade last year, and we didn't take it because I think like we were wanting like a 2nd round pick or something out of that, or like a 2nd or 3rd round pick or something, and the Bears were offering like a 4th round pick, and we ended up just cutting him for nothing. So I'm just sitting here like, man, we could have used that 4th round pick last year. Speaking of which, it sounds like the Bengals, because of the guys that we lost and the fact that we've mostly been like picking up guys who got cut, not guys whose contracts just ran out.
Mhm.
But it sounds like the Bengals are on pace for a pretty decent compensatory pick, either like a third or a fourth rounder.
You know, I like what the Bengals are doing. They said on the radio the other day about because we asked in the main podcast what are the Patriots up to. Somebody on one of the radio stations, 92.3 The Fan, talked about how the Texans and the Patriots are two of the highest spenders this offseason currently. Bengals are up to 2, but usually a team that spends a lot means that they have a lot of holes, which is true for Cincinnati. But I think Cincinnati, well, the reason why they're so aggressive right now is because they see the opportunity to take that next jump. I mean, like you guys had a really solid end of the year last year, and that was without Joe Burrow. And I know people say, "Oh, momentum don't go over from one year to the next." But when you have a young team, as Cincinnati does, when you have a young coach, a coach is learning how to win in this league. I mean, like I think momentum is important for growth. And I think that the Browns and the management and Cincinnati sees that there's an opportunity for this team to become one of the top 7 teams in the AFC. They think that they have a top 7 quarterback in the AFC for sure. They think that Joe Burrow is going to come back and take a leap. And if you believe that you have a franchise quarterback, you got to do whatever you can to win a Super Bowl right now while he's still on a rookie contract. And I just love what Cincinnati's doing right now. They're doing whatever they can to make that next step forward. And I thoroughly believe that Cincinnati can make playoffs next year. I thoroughly believe that. I like what Cincinnati's doing. And if they get Kenny Gottaway and they beef up that defense and they do something about that offensive line, they might be just more than a playoff team. They're not far, man. They're not far.
If Joe Burrow takes any
that'd be scary. That's a lot of weapons.
If Joe Burrow takes any more of a leap than where he's already at, he'll be in the fucking stratosphere. Like,
he will. No, Joe Burrow. No, we haven't seen the best Joe Burrow yet.
Like, I think Joe Burrow is already a top 7 quarterback in the AFC. If he takes another leap, then he's going to be like a top 3 quarterback in the AFC.
Yeah, but you still got my boy Baker freaking Mayfield.
Dude, I love Baker Mayfield, but Joe Burrow will be like when everything's said and done, when their careers are wrapped up, Joe Burrow will be the better quarterback of the 2.
We'll see.
We will see.
I'll tell you what, though, it is fun seeing them go at each other. It's something about when Heisman quarterbacks play each other, man. They got to go at each other's head. Like I went to a lot of Browns games. Those Browns Raven games are just different for real. Because Baker Mayfield and Lamar, I don't want to say they hate each other because I don't think they hate each other, but they have that natural rivalry for each other. Keep in mind they watch each other rise to Heisman. like that's just embedded in them. You just can't, and then they get drafted at the same time, the same draft, in the same division. Freaking Baker Mayfield versus Lamar Jackson, just so fun to watch. And then I went to that game, that Joe Burrow Baker Mayfield game, and it just seemed like it was personal. It's something about going against another Heisman winner, man. They're all in the same division. Man, that Baker Mayfield Joe Burrow game last year, that was the best football game I've ever been to in my life. It's probably not gonna get credit as good as it's probably not gonna get credit as good as it was yet, but I think over time people gonna look back at that game and say that's the start of probably gonna be a great rivalry between 2 quarterbacks. That game was, especially that fourth quarter, that fourth quarter was just nuts. Neither of the quarterbacks could miss. It was that was just one of the most phenomenal things I've ever seen. 5 touchdowns between 2 quarterbacks in the fourth quarter. That was just nuts, man. That was just nuts.
I definitely look forward to what all this could be, especially if the Bengals are able to, finally put a good team together. And I mean, you're right. The Bengals have a ton of holes, and that's why they're so active in free agency. But that's once again, pretty much what they got to do to take that next step. And so the fact that they're doing it's a big deal. But anyway, like I said, I don't want to go too long on this little extra segment because we're just going to put this at the end of the episode. There's a lot more to talk about as far as free agency and the Bengals and Browns are considered. But I think the rest of it can probably just wait until the next episode. So, yeah. Thanks for listening. Who dat?
Go Browns.